All right, Randy, stand by. We're going in 5 seconds.
Good evening, and welcome to SoCal Prep Report. I'm Randy Rosenblum, and you got to know by now, it's Thursday night, it's 9 o'clock, we're on live, and we have great prep information for you tonight. I'm going to be joined momentarily by my co-hosts tonight, Tarek Fatal from the Daily News, and a young superstar reporter, Connor Morissette. They'll be my co-hosts. We have two great guests as well, Les Lukach, prepbaseballreport.com. This guy knows everything about baseball at the local level on the prep scene. And then a little later in the program, the great coach of Loyola, the Cubs, the number one ranked team in volleyball in the southern section on the boys' side, Mike Boehle. He's won national championships, regional titles, and numerous southern section championships. But let's first bring in Tarek Fatal. He's back from the regional playoffs where he witnessed UCLA losing to North Carolina and Philadelphia. Tarek, how are you tonight?
I'm doing okay. UCLA was giving me the ride of the ride of my life there. And what an opportunity they squandered. I tell you what, to beat North Carolina, then have the opportunity to play St. Peter's, but Caleb Love made shots at the end of the game for the Tar Heels, and UCLA's season ended, and so did mine.
Well, no, you didn't. You're here. You're with us.
That's right.
Connor Morissette, what happened for you this week? What was big in prep sports for you? I know you went out to some baseball games.
Yeah, I went to a fairly controversial West Valley League baseball game where there was a pine tar incident and there was a protest, and we're going to hear about what happened with the protest on Tuesday, but Birmingham fell to Chatsworth 3-0. Chatsworth had some pine tar on a bat in the bottom of the third when they were up 1-0, and it was a big mess, but at the end of the game, it was 3-0 Chatsworth, and then the protest, I didn't even think it really mattered because Chatsworth was already winning 1-0 at the time of the incident, but we can get into it more later, but crazy game in the West Valley League, and that's just kind of what happens in that league. It's a lot of fun, can get kind of crazy, and that's what happened on Tuesday.
To introduce Les Lukach from the Prep Baseball Report. Les, how are you tonight?
Doing well, Randy. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're going to get the second degree from us. We're going to talk about all the different guys and all the top teams in Southern California. But I want to go back first 5 years ago because Hunter Greene's about to make his Major League Baseball debut for the Cincinnati Reds in early April. He's a tremendous pitcher. He was a great shortstop in high school at Notre Dame. And we had an opportunity 5 years ago on this show to go to Sherman Oaks and talk to Hunter Greene about how he was coming up as a young baseball player.
Yeah, I started at the Urban Youth Academy when I was 7 years old. I've been living in Santa Clarita, since I was 1 year old. And my dad and I have made that drive, since I was 7, which is, say, roughly an hour and a half, 2 hours during the weekday, which is, a real dedication. But it's been great, those people there, all the coaches, and, they've been awesome. I mean, just from teaching me how to work hard when I go out on the field, and every time I step foot out there, give 110%. And just appreciate all the players around me and really try to help them out. What I've taken, my favorite is Derek Jeter's book. I think it's called Captain. And he talked about really helping those around him, inspiring others to really do well and push to be their best. So I've really, taken that into consideration and try to do that every time I walk out on the field.
Of course, that's Hunter Greene from 5 years ago. That day, we also talked to Tom Dill, who this week, by the way, picked up his 500th career victory as the head coach at Notre Dame. And Tom Dill was so enthusiastic about a young Hunter Greene on his team.
Yeah, I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to coach someone like Hunter. Even when he came in here as a gangly 8th grader, he was still respectful and still a student of the game. His body was trying to catch up, but his mind was always there. He knew where to go, what to do, but I think he would agree his body just couldn't do it yet. But his mind was always there, and his mannerisms were there, his confidence and the way he played the game. has really always been the same. As a freshman, I remember using him in relief a few times. He had the same calmness when things didn't go right as he does today. So he's always had that. I attribute that to his parents for teaching him how the right way to handle things and not to get too emotional and up and down. And he has been that way the whole time he's been here.
Tarek, that's 5 years ago. Now he's about to start his MLB career for the Cincinnati Reds.
What a journey it's been for him. I actually spoke with Tom Dill earlier today. I was kind of hashing out his 500th win, and we talked about Hunter Greene, and what a great day it was for Tom Dill because he learned Hunter Greene was going to be in that starting rotation. He got his 500th win. Great day for Tom Dill, but he couldn't stop but talk about how proud he was of Hunter Greene, all that he's gone through with Tommy John and coming back. And he's finally, as they say, in the show. And I know when local kids go on and they do great things at the collegiate or professional level, the whole community roots for him. And so certainly here in the San Fernando Valley and in the Santa Clarita Valley where he lives, everyone's rooting for Hunter Greene.
Connor Morris said, I know you're rooting for Hunter. You know he's a good kid.
Yeah, absolutely. I know no one cares about other people's fantasy teams, but in my family fantasy baseball league, I drafted Hunter yesterday, and I'm really excited to see what he can do, finally getting his chance in Major League Baseball, because his success will be my success this year. So looking forward to that.
Well, from prepbaseball.com is Les Lukach, and I know, Les, you saw Hunter Greene at Notre Dame. Did you know at that time he was going to reach these heights?
Well, you're right. I did see him, and you had a pretty good indication fairly early on in his high school career that, hey, this kid's different. And he's got a chance to be pretty special. You know, I was actually at that winter ball game where he touched 102 miles an hour, and just the looks on the eyes and the faces of professional scouts said it all. I mean, this is a kid who at 18 years old was touching 102 miles an hour, and it's not something you see every day, right? I mean, nowadays, you know, with the velocity increases that we're seeing pretty routinely, you know, you see a high school kid touching 93, 94 miles an hour, your eyes open up a little bit wider. But that particular day was something that I certainly will never forget. And it was you know, at that moment, if probably in the summer before that at the area code games where, you know, you had a pretty good indication that he had a chance to be a top 5 pick in the draft. And, you know, after that day when he touched 102 miles an hour, everybody thought, okay, well, potentially this could be the first right-handed high school pitcher taken in the MLB draft. And didn't work out that way. But I think the end goal there, you know, him reaching the major leagues, you know, certainly is fulfilling to a lot of people that followed his high school career.
Les, you know the crop of pitchers that are out there today around Southern California. There's a lot of good ones. Orange Lutheran, Harvard Westlake, Sierra Canyon. All these guys are stacked with great pitchers. Is there a guy like Hunter Greene out there? Is there a potential high draft pick around this region right now?
I think in this 22 draft class, that remains to be seen. You know, a lot has been made of what's going on at Sierra Canyon, and rightfully so. Those guys are deserving of all the attention that they get. You know, there we have both Newt and Thomas as the top 2 right-handed pitchers ranked in the state, and those guys are really good. Will they be, you know, first-round picks? That remains to be seen. I think their schedule that they've played so far leaves a little bit to be desired. With the upcoming spring break tournament they'll have in a couple of weeks, that will, I think, help them in that goal of being drafted in the first round. You know, I think the competition level that they're going to face there in that tournament is going to be the best competition that they will have faced all year until they get into the postseason. But, you know, if you look down a couple of classes, you know, you mentioned Harvard Westlake, you know, certainly Bryce Rayner right now is the best player in the country in that 2024 class. And, you know, I like to tell the story, and I shared this with Connor the other day. You know, his last pitch as a high school freshman was 93 miles an hour, and he's already put on 15 pounds since then, and will very likely put on another 10 to 15 pounds before next year. So you're looking at a kid who will have taken a year off from pitching, who potentially will have added 30 pounds. So the idea or the notion that you know, Bryce Rayner in the 2024 class could be that next guy to touch 100 miles an hour isn't far-fetched.
Tarek, I know you have the question, the next one up. You were in the on-deck circle for Les Lukach.
Right, but but a little bit off the air, we were kind of talking about Sierra Canyon. I agree with you. I think their schedule has been weak. Let's call it what it is. It hasn't been all that challenging. And when I think the tournament you were alluding to is the Boris Classic. When you think about that tournament and you look at that bracket and you see the arms or the bats that these guys are going to face, are scouts seeing it like that? Like you are, like, okay, I need to get to those games and evaluate Cassius Thomas, Jaden Newt, because I need to see that better competition they're going to face?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I purposely have not seen them yet this year because, I'll be there all week for that tournament and have an opportunity to see them against some really good teams. And just in speaking with some of the pro scouts that have seen them, that seems to always come up is, hey, they're facing some guys that, may go Division 1, but, in many cases, they're facing a lot of guys that aren't going to play baseball beyond high school. So, when you look at it like that, it's tough to evaluate a pitcher for an MLB draft who's, he's going up against a bunch of kids that, won't play beyond high school. And in many cases, they just won't have that opportunity. But, we talk about the Boris Classic and you've been there, Tarek, and Connor, you've been there as well. And I mean, you're going to be throwing in front of 75 to 100 scouts and cross checkers and general managers and scouting directors. And so, these are people that make decisions when it comes to the draft. And, it's going to be an opportunity for those guys to compete against some high level talent on the other side and prove that they are worthy of that, potential first round consideration, which, I'll be honest here, both of those guys are in that conversation, maybe more so Jaden Newt than Cassius Thomas at this point. But, Jaden Newt certainly has positioned himself to be potentially the first pitcher taken here from Southern California in the draft, whether that's in the first round, second round, or even as late as the third. I don't think that he's going to be on the board much after the third round.
I know, Connor, you have history with our guest, Les Lukach. You guys have done a program recently together.
Yeah, Les, thank you again for coming on the SB Live California podcast. And we talked about this a little bit, so my apologies to make you repeat yourself, but different programs, so we'll get a different audience here. It seems like it's Orange Lutheran's year in the Southern section. I know with the one-off playoff games, anyone can get beaten on any given day. But right now, we have Orange Lutheran as the number one team in the Southern section in our rankings. I know you guys have them as number one in the state. It looks like they're the top team. Would you agree? And if you do, why are they the best?
Yeah, we do have them number one in the state, and a lot of publications have them number one in the country. And I think right now it's funny. I just had a phone call today with the high school coach, and we were chatting about this a little bit. And it's them and everybody else at this point. They're really, really talented. Their pitching staff is just very good. I mean, we talk about Newton Thomas at the top of the rotation there at Sierra Canyon. You have Oliver Santos and Louis Rodriguez at the top of Olu's rotation down there. And then when you get beyond that, you have, another Division 1 arm. Then you have 3 or 4 guys that will be Division 1 arms after that. Just the depth of talent that they have on the mound really separates them. But it's not only the talent on the mound, it's the talent at the plate too. I mean, you have a number of Division 1 hitters up and down that lineup. You have a couple of guys that are that are starters in that lineup who aren't yet committed, but very likely will end up being Division 1 hitters. And then you go beyond that and just the depth of the program. You have guys on the bench who are going to be Division 1 players that can't get at bats and can't get time on the field. And so it just gives you an indication of the depth. But, we talked about this, Connor, about, the one and done in the CIF Southern Section playoffs is really the biggest challenge, right? I mean, they've had really good teams. Jay Sarah had a really good team. Huntington Beach has had good teams in the past where you think, okay, this is the best team in the Southern Section, and they're bounced in the second or third round of the playoffs. And that's just the nature of the beast. And, anybody can beat anybody. everybody. If you go back to, I want to say it was 2016 when Murrieta Mesa came in and upset Olu, and Olu was the number 1 seed in that tournament, and they came on the road and beat them. And it's just, one of those things. At the end of the day, these are 16, 17, 18-year-old high school kids, and who are prone to mistakes at times, and who get butterflies in their stomachs, and anything can happen in one of those single elimination tournaments. And personally, as a fan and as an observer of the game here in the Southern section, I enjoy that. I think it really adds to the flavor of the playoffs, if you will, and the intensity of the playoffs, because every pitch matters, and every play matters. And that's why you see those games extend to 3 hours and beyond, because they're so critical. Every pitch is so critical in those postseason games. But to kind of circle back to your question, yes, I mean, at this point, it's Orange Lutheran and everybody else. They've swept a couple of Trinity League opponents, and that in and of itself gives you an indication of just how good they are.
Last question for Les. Is Harvard Westlake that other team that is the most dangerous in the pack once they get to the tournament? Because the Wolverines are loaded.
They are absolutely loaded, yeah, and I think that they're one of a handful of teams that could make a run and get into there. I mean, let's not forget Jared Halpert has coached the last 2 CIF finals, Division I finals. They lost in 2019 and they won it, last year in 2021. So, I mean, the guy knows how to get a team there, and he knows how to prepare them for a win. And that's critical. I think a team like Ukaipa is also really good, and they have the depth on the mound to catapult them into a deep run in the postseason. And just when everybody kind of wrote Jay Serra off, well, here they go. I think they've won 4 of their last 5, and they're starting to make a run too. And so I think there's a handful of teams in Division I outside of Orange Lutheran that could really make some noise. And let's face it, we've all followed high school baseball here in Southern Section long enough to know that there's always going to be that one sleeper team. And there's going to be a team that makes a run, that pulls an upset, and gets a lucky bounce here and finds themselves in the semifinals with a chance to make it to Dodger Stadium or Cal State Fullerton, wherever the finals may be this year. And so you can't sleep on that fact either. But yes, I mean, at this point, Harvard Westlake most certainly is in there. Huntington Beach is starting to regain their footing too. And if you look at their, 3-headed monster that they have on the mound, that bodes really well when you get into these 2 games a week series. A lot of these leagues now playing 3 games a week. So once you get into those 2 games a week in the postseason, it can really play a big, huge role.
Well, Les, thank you very much. We'll be checking out prepbaseballreport.com. You have all the information. We'll have you back again later in the season.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Les Lukach. Does a terrific job, and as you could tell, he's got great insight. Speaking of a man with great insight, Mike Boehle, the head coach at Loyola for the Cubs in boys volleyball, year in and year out, gets it done. He got it done tonight. He beat Notre Dame of Sherman Oaks in 3 sets. He beat Miracosta the other night. He's ranked number 1 in the CIF Southern section again. So we bring in Mike Boehle, and I know he's excited about this year's team. Mike, thank you for your patience, and congratulations. You're off to another terrific start. I know you're excited about this year's team.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. I appreciate you having me, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Randy. And Connor and Tarek, I haven't met you guys personally, but I do follow you guys on Twitter and Instagram, so thank you guys for keeping prep sports alive. Very excited about this year's squad. They had a lot of ammunition coming back from last year's semifinal finalist team, and they prepared. They've been waiting a year for it, and so far so good. We had a couple of bumps and a couple of detours, but they're back on track right now, and they're playing some really, really good volleyball.
What makes this team special? Why are you so good?
They all appreciate one another. We talk about roles on the team early on. Part of my culture is we meet and we discuss that, there's only 6 guys allowed on the court, and we've got a total of 18 guys on the team. So it's going to take all 18 of them to really buy in and accept and understand and push. And so far, so good. It's happening. Those are the teams, I'll be quite honest, that have had the most success under my helm. And, with the CIF title, it's those teams that are cohesive. And this team is on the track to be, or has a possibility to hopefully win another CIF, because they all believe in one another and they all support one another, which has been fantastic.
Tarek, Mike's teams have won 6 CIF titles, 4 state regional championships, and 2 national titles. So I'm sure you're going to tee up a nice question for the coach.
Well, Randy is over here teeing it up. So I have to ask, complacency, coach, is that something you have to fight with your team? Do you find yourself always making sure that these guys don't play down to the level of competition, or they stay hungry? Because especially in that postseason, you only get one chance and you don't want it to end your season. So is that a lesson you try and kind of thread into your team throughout the year? And if so, how do you do it?
Yeah, no, Tarek, that's a great question. And we just talked about it tonight. We do get complacent with our play. We have a very talented group of players. We've got 5 guys playing Division I next year, which is, it's unheard of in men's college volleyball. So it just tells you how talented our group is. And so, people talk about how easy it must be to roll out the volleyballs and just let them go. And when you have that kind of talent, there's other things that come into play with that. So, sense of urgency. We didn't play a complete match until our 10th or 11th match. And it was just getting those guys to understand. We go back to roles and knowing that not everybody could be the superstar. They had to understand where they were going to fit in our offensive scheme. But it's something we talk about all the time. And I think last year there was a sense of complacency. And I think the seniors that came back this year really instilled into the underclassmen that this wasn't going to happen again. We weren't going to be complacent. And there are times where they slip, but we have a motto, no more than 2. And that means no more than 2 unforced errors on either side of the ball. So as soon as I hold up my hand and show the number 2, they get refocused again. So far, it's been great. I think we're on a 12-match winning streak right now. But that's always the fear. And I can tell you that my guys are not cocky. They're confident, and they're very humble too. So they've got something to prove this year, and I think we're on the right track to do that.
I know, Connor, you've covered a lot of volleyball, and you're very familiar with this Loyola program.
Mike, great to be with you. When you're at the top of the mountain like you guys are, you get every team's best shot. I know Mater Dei is looking ahead to the playoffs. They want to try to take you guys down. Who are some teams on your radar that even though you have such a high ceiling, who are some teams that if they reach their ceiling could be a tough matchup come playoff time?
Sure. No, I think you hit it on the head. Everybody's gunning for the number 1 team. There's a huge bullseye on our back. And I think that helps our kids put into perspective too, that you've got to come out with your best every single night. It doesn't matter if we're playing a league opponent who may not be up to par with us, or we're playing a team like Mater Dei. So I think that helps us. I would tell you that we've played everybody in the top 10. I think there are a bunch of schools, Mater Dei, Newport Harbor, Corona del Mar, just from the Orange County side, Santa Barbara, Maricosta. There are teams that can certainly sneak up on you, and we're well aware of it. We have a really good program that archives all of our videos and stats, and so kids are constantly on that. We make sure that if we are going to play a tough opponent, that's being charted and statted pretty well. But we know what's coming down the road for us. I've been there a few times, so I try to instill that kind of knowledge into those guys, just to say, hey, this is what it takes. And, we have 2 more matches before we take a pretty good break and then go right into playoffs. So, again, their mindset has been great. And that's another thing we talk about, is that mindset dictates outcome. And it's a process. The analogy that we use in the beginning of the year is we build a house, and, we lay the foundation, we start the framework, and then hopefully by May 14th, we're taking the keys to our brand new house and open up the door to see what we built.
Well, I'm sure your foundation is very strong, and what you build will be great. But you also have terrific players as part of those building blocks. Let's get some of those names out there, some name recognition. You said you had a boatload of stars who are going to go D1. Who are some of those guys?
Sure. To start, we've got Dylan Klein, who is a 6'4" senior outside hitter who's going to USC. Ryan Sprague, 6'3" setter, who's going to USC. Owen Longcar, 6'4", opposite outside, going to UC Santa Barbara. Michael Robertson, 6'7", opposite, going to UC San Diego. And then Ryan Vina, 6'7", middle, going to Princeton University. We have probably the top sophomore outside hitter in the country on our program, Sean Kelly, who will be looked at quite a bit. We've got a couple of underclassmen, Lucas Anderson, Cortez Guillermo. There's just a slew of guys, but those five have really been the backbone. And I tell guys or tell coaches and teams all the time, we're just real physical. And we may be out of system, but the physicality of our team, will surprise some teams. And knock on wood, we've been blessed so far, and we just think that if these guys have what it takes, this is the year to do it for sure.
I know we have time for one more question. Tarek, it's your turn.
Well, I kind of want to ask, when we hear in sports physical, we think about like getting physical with the opponent. Obviously, in volleyball, you're really you're not touching the opponent. And my guess is you're talking about their size and their strength. Can you talk a little bit more about that physicality and how that affects the game? What do you mean physicality when it comes to volleyball?
Sure. We're very aggressive. We're very offensive. When I talk about out of system, I'm talking about a pass that may not be a perfect pass, where instead of having three options, we have one option. But our physicalness, the physicality of our players will go up and just be so aggressive, and defensively they know it. So we may be out of system, but our hitters make it look like we're in system. And right now we have a side out ratio. I think it's a percentage of about 70% in our 17 matches so far. Obviously over 72% is a pretty good side out percentage to have, and it's pretty much a guarantee to win a set if you're siding out at that high of a click. So, when I talk about physical blocking, like we're just big and we take a lot of area. We serve the heck out of the ball. All of us jump serve. We've got one float server, but we're aggressive. We don't give up a lot of runs. And, from an offensive standpoint, I haven't seen this many arms on a team in a long time. And one of the best compliments I had came from Newport Harbor this year. We went down there and played, and we haven't beaten Newport Harbor in their gym in probably 3 or 4 years. It's a very, very tough place to play. The coach came up to me and just basically, I've never seen a high school team play the way you played. As a team, we hit over, I think it was 650, 700, and I've never even been part of that before. So we had the capabilities to be very physical at any given time. As much as I want them to clean it up, to make sure that passes are right on, that we're digging balls, there is that outlet where I know someone's going to go up and take a crack, even if we're not in system. So that's basically what I mean when we talk about our physicality, for sure.
Well, Mike, your system always seems to work. You win championships. You do a great job. It's always terrific to see you. Continued success at Loyola High School in Los Angeles.
I really appreciate that very much, and I'll let the guys know that you wish them the best. And again, thanks for having me on. I love this kind of stuff. It promotes men's and boys volleyball. It's good PR for Loyola, and the fact that I got to see and meet Tarek and Connor. Randy, you and I go way back, but again, I really appreciate what you guys do for prep sports. It's pretty good, pretty cool.
All right. We appreciate your coaching. Coach, thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you. Tarek, we're running out of time. 30 seconds. What do you want to see in prep sports this week, and what are you going to cover?
Well, I'm actually going to head back to the West Valley League. I mean, you cannot, when it comes to West Valley, you can absolutely depend on drama and parity. It might be the most fun league to cover in Southern California because you just never know what's going to happen. It does not have the most talent. But boy, you never know who's going to win. You never know what's going to happen. I think I'm going to go to the Chatsworth Birmingham game tomorrow. Connor, I don't know if you're going to be there, but I expect it to be a heated second game.
Be there. And another question for Connor. You're not going?
No. Sorry to step on you there, Randy. I will not be there because I covered it Tuesday. But Tarek, you gotta just see what the temperature is of the Chatsworth side because they were really upset with that protest from Birmingham, and Matt Morey, the coach, feels like he didn't do anything wrong. So there's definitely a bunch of drama there. I'm excited to read your story. I think that's going to be a great game. I'm actually going to also do West Valley League, but I'm going to see Cleveland at Granada Hills.
From Connor, did you get a final on the softball score? Because Villa Park, 15-0, ranked number 1, was playing Beaumont, ranked number 2. It was 1-0 in the 5th inning. The last we checked, that game was ongoing. Has it concluded?
Let me see. Let me check with my friend Eric Paul Johnson. I have the latest after 5 innings. Villa Park 1, Beaumont 0. So not done yet, but getting close.
All right. Guys, thanks a lot. Terrific half hour. Always a pleasure with Tarek Fatal from the Daily News and Connor Morissette. Connor, thank you for joining us as well tonight. And that's going to wrap it up for SoCal Prep Report. We're going to talk a lot of softball next week. Jody Borenstein of El Camino Real will join us next Thursday night, live at 9 o'clock on SoCal Prep Report. Good night, everybody.